We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Tyler Yellowboy. I am a district chairman for the Oglala District. And this evening we are here to present to you the youth portion of the constitutional reform that is currently going on our reservation. So with that, I want to welcome all of you. I want to welcome the KOLC viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight again. This is the second of 3 youth contact meetings we have. So this evening we have one council representative with us, and I think she went out to go get her charger out of the car. That is Stephenie Leizure. She is a Oglala District Council representative. Invitation was given to the Medicine Route Council representatives, but unfortunately they have prior engagements and are not here at this moment. They may show up or so forth. But tonight we're here to hear your input on the document that you guys have. I'm glad that you all have copies of that document. I hope you all read it. I hope you had time to go through it and see the changes. I know we had gotten copies of your recommendations already, I think. And I got to see them on Tuesday night when we were out to Christopher School, and they were given to us. And I really appreciate you guys' input. Tonight we have Phisilatater Ms. Little. She is the vice chairwoman of the Oglala District, my district. I'm the chairman, and we're over here. I didn't know I'd be working with her tonight, so until I got the text and I got to Sharp's Corner. But and we have Miss Gina in the back, who is also a facilitator. So tonight we want to hear your comments, your concerns. If you have anything, raise your hand. Don't be afraid to ask a question. Don't be afraid to say anything. This is why we're here. We're here to hear your input. We're here to go through the Constitution that hasn't been touched for 90 years. It's older than myself, older than I believe anybody in this room. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Blue Don, and we'll get started.
Good afternoon. My name is Blue Don Little, and I am the VP of the Oglala District, but I am also a Native Nation rebuilder, and we were trained in facilitation, but also constitutional reform. So this is why the task force, the Constitutional Reform Task Force, picked us to help facilitate these meetings. So we're just gonna go ahead. Okay, so first, Tyler and Gina are gonna help me. Did you guys get a chance to sit down and pick your likes and dislikes with the Constitution? You didn't? Okay.
High school, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna address the dislikes first. And I guess we can just start anywhere in the crowd, whoever wants to go first.
Matia.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Matia Pourer. I'm a senior here at Liberal School, and I'm a part of the student council. And we go over, like a while ago, we went over the Constitution and found things we would revise. Our first revision is in Article 3, Governing Body, Section 6. The officer of the tribal council shall be a president and a vice president elected by the members of the Oglala Sioux tribe at large, and a secretary, a treasurer, and such other officers, as many be deemed necessary. Elected from outside the membership of the council shall have no vote in the council except that the president shall vote in case of attack.
Okay, I don't mean to cut you off, but just in, I guess, just in general, because we're going to go over each article, and then you'll be able to give us your input for every single article. But just in general, were there any dislikes that you had?
Yeah, we have recommendations for each.
Okay, and then you're saying it's for the article, right?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that. So then we can do, I would say we just leave it if you guys have it articulated down to that, so you're not repeating yourself. And then we'll go through a short timeline here of the treaties and just kind of how they led up to the IRA government, and then we'll sit down, and then we'll just give you guys the mic for your readings, your changes. Okay, so the colonial period, 1492 to 1828, post-Revolutionary War. 1778 treaty with Delaware Indians was the first treaty between the United States and an Indian tribe. Marshall Trilogy, 1823, 3 cases of federal Indian law that affirmed tribal sovereignty and established a doctrine for federal trust responsibility. And then the Bureau of Indian Affairs was also created at that time. So the removal and relocation period took place between 1828 and 1871. As U.S. population continued to grow and the demand for the land on the East Coast increased, the U.S. government forced Eastern tribes west. By the 1850s, nearly all Eastern tribes were moved to the center of the country. Relocation of Eastern tribes caused conflict with the tribes of the Great Plains. The removal policy gave way to the official policy of confining Indians to reservations rather than relocating them beyond the rapidly expanding frontier.
Our clicker failed.
So 1851 was the Fort Laramie Treaty, right? This is the first treaty with the U.S. government and tribe. The original 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty formalized the U.S. government's relationship with the Sioux and officially recognized the Sioux Nation's boundaries for the first time. The treaty promised land rights and annuities for the Sioux and other tribes while providing access across Indian lands for settlers and their army escorts. A new treaty in 1868, so this was the next one. Now this one defined the lands in the Great Sioux Reservation, and it also defined, which, the head of households got certain, forgive me, my mind's struggling, but they were allotted, the land and then rations. They were given the opportunity to have, a craftsman or a physician on site. So really it was where they started to define what was being owed to them. A new treaty, or go back, I'll just read it. Established a Sioux reservation on land comprising the western half of present-day South Dakota.
I got it.
Yeah.
I see you got, it's kind of listed on there, but where it has the outline, all of the Montana and Wyoming land, it gave the same protections to the Great Sioux Reservation as unceded Indian territory.
Yeah.
And then the Nebraska part, it made as a hunting territory.
Yeah.
So that was all included in 1868 too.
Yes. Thank you. So the U.S. Army fought the Sioux who remained outside the reservation. Colonel Custer's troops were annihilated at the Little Bighorn. This is all towards the end of this period. The government then seized the Black Hills and other Sioux land. So the Allotment Act of 1871 through 1928. More Indian lands were taken for settlement by the federal government. Federal law expanded into internal tribal affairs. Indian children were forced to attend government church boarding schools. They were taken from their families at that time. Reserved tribal lands were allotted to individuals. Indian ownership, which is also the Law Act, began in 1887. So due to the number of Indians fighting in World War II for the U.S., the federal government offered U.S. citizenship to Indians in 1924. So as North Dakota and South Dakota moved towards statehood, the 21 million acre reservation was cut by half and the remaining land divided into 6 smaller reservations. Some of that reservation land was later opened to settlers. In 1980, the U.S. Supreme Court, let me go back one second. U.S. Supreme Court ordered the U.S. government to pay for its appropriations, the Black Hills. So that's the settlement that now, after being held with interest for this long, is over $1 billion. And still at this point, our tribes are unwilling to take that money and give up our land, our ancestral homeland. Reorganization period. It ended allotments as U.S. government began to restore Indian lands. U.S. government created programs and projects for health facilities, irrigation works, roads, homes, and schools to help restore Indian economic and cultural life. 1934 Reorganization Act established modern tribal government, and then for the first time tribal governments were recognized. So the termination and relocation period, at this time, they were relocating families, and that was a program started with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So the trust relationship between federal and tribal governments, self-government of the tribes, 100 tribes ceased to be recognized. And then, as I said, the BIA started a relocation program. 40% of Indian people still reside in the cities from this relocation program. So when you find families who are in California or in Washington, Florida, and they all have they all descend from the Oglala or Sioux bands, it's because of this relocation. And then we had the self-determination period, 1965. Then to the present. So the federal government expanded the powers of tribal self-government and restored the recognition of tribes. And then we had the Indian Civil Rights Act, Indian Self-Determination Education Assistance Act, American Indian Religious Freedom Act, Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. So all of this stuff came about as essentially we were recognized as citizens, and then they started to fare or protect our well-being in some sense. So Pine Ridge today, Pine Ridge and 5 other reservations of the Oceti-Shankpoli own 5 million acres of their original treaty land. Through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, tribes can arrange leases of reservation land and use mainly for grazing. Some leases go to Indians, others to outsiders. Because of the way the land was originally allotted, we have been left with the least productive tracts. And then you can skip over this part. Yeah, next one. Sorry. We're in the Constitution, yeah. No, you can go to the Constitution, sorry. Okay. So we have the OST current Constitution. It was approved January 15th, 1936, and then we've had 4 periods of revision and amendments. The 1969 amendments, 1985 amendments, 1997 amendments, and the 2008 amendments. And the last constitutional revision was in 2008, and all of the articles, 17 articles there was some revision to it. But you need to keep in mind that these revisions came from council. They did not come from the people. So the Oglala Sioux tribe membership didn't get the chance to have a say-so in what these revisions were, but they did have the chance to vote on them. They just didn't have the say-so, and this is the whole reason why we're coming to the youth and the communities, so that they have a say-so in what's revised this time. They get to make the changes. So, and that includes you. So, you do that. Okay, so we have Article 1, and is that what you said your name? Matia. Yep. Okay. Yep, so we are going to go through and we're going to talk about each article, And as we go through every article in the Constitution, whether you have a question, Stephenie Leizure, Oglala Rep, is here to help. Tyler can answer questions, I can answer questions, and we'll do the best to help you through it. But we will address each article as they come up. So if you have your changes, your suggestions, then we'll let you read them. So Article 1 is territory. The jurisdiction of the Oglala Sioux Tribe of Indians shall extend to the territory within the original confines of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation boundaries, as defined hereafter, added thereto under any law of the U.S. except as may be otherwise provided by law for unrestricted lands. To regulate the inheritance of property, real and personal, other than allotted land within the territory of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. So that was Article 1, and it just defines our boundaries as the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And do you guys have any suggestions for that or questions? So Article 2 is membership. Section 1 states membership of the Oglala Sioux Tribe shall be automatic when A, the person's name appears on the official roll of the Oglala Sioux Tribe of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation as of April 1st, 1935, or if the person's name appears on any correction made within 5 years after the adoption of the Constitution on January 1936. B, a child is born to any member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. Section 2, the Tribal Council shall have the authority to adopt laws governing future membership. So Article 3, governing bodies. Section 1 through Section 10 describes the governing body of Tribal Council. Now that's Article 3. Yep. So was that what you guys had the change on? Okay. And did any of you have a suggestion for the governing body? Okay.
In Section 6, we have a recommendation that the position of Secretary and Treasurer positions should require skills in computer management, math, and office skills usually associated with a bachelor's degree. There may be requirements already set forth in the OST bylaws or resolutions. However, these positions should require specific education requirements before the council can nominate them.
We had one in Section 8. Is although a 2-year term allows for the quick removal of ineffective leaders, 2 years is not enough time to flesh any proposals through the bureaucracy of the PIA. 4 years terms may be a better measurement of a leader's political effectiveness.
And we had one more in Section 10. Our recommendation was the OST Supreme Court should be the judge of constitutionality, as it is generally a Supreme Court purpose to define and interpret constitutionality.
Thank you. That was some good input.
I'm Simon Redell. We didn't have enough time to review this, and we're just hoping that it will give us some more time to review it and we'll answer the questions. Thank you.
Blue Dawn, I can answer that. I'm Dana Bravigal, and I'm the Tribal Ed Agency Director. And we had a reservation-wide student council meeting November 30th. And I know Little Wounds Middle School and High School was represented. And I know that in January, Little Wound is hosting the second one.
And we set the date for the 17th if that works.
The January 17th.
Yes.
And so then too was when we would have some time to bring back some information if we needed to. But I know that this is kind of a quick turnaround in an event because we're hoping to get this in a ballot form this spring.
Right, yes. So there will be another youth forum, and we do want your input. So please, if you want to take the Constitution back and then read over it and give us your suggestions. We're coming back and we're gonna come back with some of the suggestions in a revision, and then we get to grab input again. So we're gonna come around a second time, and please show.
And we also have a survey attached. I mean, you have the
Yes.
survey, if you want to take some time to review that with others and your family or other members, you can always turn that in. We're setting up several things. We will be doing something at LNI as well as a youth forum with LNI on the Constitution as well.
Or like if you finish your surveys and you could get them to like Linda or James, and they can always call us and we can pick them up and make sure they get to who they need to go to. So we'll definitely be getting your input.
Okay? Where you go to 4? So Article 4 is the powers of council. Now, Section 1 through Section 3 describes how the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council shall exercise their powers and negotiate with governments, to employ legal counsel, to approve or veto sale of land, to advise the Secretary of Interior, to make assignments of tribal land, to manage economic affairs and enterprises, to appropriate for public purposes, to levy taxes, licenses, fees, to remove trespassers, and exclude and banish persons, to enact resolutions and ordinances, etc. So basically, you know, this gives council a lot of power to make decisions for a lot of the aspects of the people. Now, did any of you in the crowd have a suggestion for Article 4, powers of council?
Good, Caleb.
Our recommendation is that any land sale that removes any land from trust status should be approved by 3/4 of all of quota as per Article 12, 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
I think everybody can hear me. That the third line there, to approve or veto sale of land, you have the authority, but if there's nothing in that, unless it's fine print saying how, if Tyler had some land for sale and I bought it from him under the table without anybody's knowing about it, is that legal? Does that fall under the power of the council to veto that? Because you got to understand the overall concept of land sale across this reservation. We have white people coming in here who the natives borrow money. They can't pay back that money. So what do? They give that land. That shouldn't happen. The land, to approve or veto sale of land, that should include that aspect of the sale of land. Because right now, I just say the name, but there's a rancher east of town here, east of Cobb, 10 miles out, who owns vast sections of tribal land, or native land, a lot of land, formerly a lot of land. And he got that land, just to explain, they owed him money, and being that his mother was 1/16 native, she was authorized to buy that land. That needs to be addressed in that veto, approval of the veto sale of land.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
I would also like to address the issues of land. My own children, they're my descendants. I'm an enrolled member, but I cannot pass my land on to them. This is what I was told, because they're not enrolled members here. They're enrolled elsewhere. And I think that's unfair, because it goes back to non-Lakotas owning land here, where descendants can't just because they're not enrolled here.
This is, we sit here, we're here to listen, and they're all good ideas. I have somebody taking notes back there. I was kindly reminded that there is a district meeting on Saturday at
9 to 2.
9 to 2. But at the CAP office? At the CAP office. At the CAP office. Yeah, here.
To go over this.
And that's where the adult portion is going to be discussed. And that is where the adults can come and give your concerns. I know we have a limited time with the students, and we're trying to stay on track with that. So, and I'm not saying your comments are not welcome, they're welcome, but we want to have a discussion with the students. And the adult portion, they'll be back on Saturday at the CAP office to hear your concerns. So they can write them down on this big piece of paper and hear everything that you want to see changed. Because I too don't agree with that. But that's something I have to hold back until they come to my district. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Udon.
The district clerk's going to be at that one.
Thanks, Tyler. Okay, so we have Article 5, Judicial Powers. Now, Section 1 through Section 7 describe and break down the judicial powers of the Oglala tribe and the powers of the Supreme Court, the inferior tribal court, and compensation, removal, and vacancies in the Supreme Court. Now, pertaining to judicial powers, is there any suggestion of change within those?
Our recommendation is, if there is a Juris Doctorate from an ABA accredited law school waiver policy, it should be noted in the Constitution. Also, the tribe should work to provide scholarships for hard-to-fill tribal BIA jobs on reservations, such as lawyers and doctors.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can go to 6. So Article 6 is district organization. This article describes the roles and purposes of the district organization. Now, did anyone have input, questions, clarification? Okay. Seven, elections. Section 1 and Section 2 describe who is eligible to vote in elections and how the tribal council shall determine time and place and manner of elections.
I have a question. How many of you know what your districts do? Not to go back off of your elections, but how many of you know what your district offices do?
How many of you know your district representatives?
Yeah.
How about your district elective office? You have a district executive board here at Medicine Road. Like Tyler said, he's the Oglala District President and Blue Dawn is the Vice President of their district. You have that here at Medicine Road. Do you know who they are? How about Porcupine? They have one too.
Each district is comprised of these district executive boards, and we are like we kind of like the House of Representatives concept. We're a House of Representatives and our council reps are the senators. But we govern our own districts within our boundaries. I'm asking because I know it's vague and it says Article 6 is vague. Doesn't really give a description of what the districts do, what we're allowed to do, but there is district government out there. And maybe sometimes in the near future we can go back and give a little history of how the district governments function. You know, we function just like the tribal government, just at a local level, is what it is. So.
Thank you, Sarah. I guess just to re-ask the question about elections, did anyone have input? Yeah?
We have one for section 1. Voting should be an inherent right that comes with Oglala's tribal membership. Many people leave their reservation to serve in the armed forces or seek employment. Many come back and bring the skills they learned outside the reservation borders. Tribal members who live in Rapid City live off the reservation but are often very involved in Oglala's voting society.
So that was just, doesn't matter if they live here, if they're off reservation, they should still be allowed to vote as long as they're involved, right?
Does anyone know how much membership we have? What our membership is off and on the reservation? A total membership? Last I heard it was 48,000. No, membership. Total Oglalas enrolled, 48,000. And I bet you it has to be less than half live here, right?
There's Steph, do you know that statistic?
Yeah, that's about right. That's living on and off here, but I believe that number is higher. We just, we're trying to do a census, a true census. And that true census includes everybody within every district here on the reservation. But the enrollment, because we have so many pending applications, we can't count them all, so we can only include the ones that are enrolled. But I know we have plenty of pending applications that your parents, if you have siblings and your parents, check with your parents to see if their children are enrolled, because that plays a big role with regard to funding and when you're going off to school and stuff. That does play a big role. So, and it helps here it helps our numbers. So one day I hope to get a true census of our whole reservation here.
So Article 8, removal of officers. Section 1 and Section 2 describe the process of removal from tribal council. Article 9, referendum. Upon a petition by at least 1/3 of the eligible voters of the Oglala Sioux tribe, or upon the request of a majority of the members of the tribal council, any enacted or proposed ordinance or resolution of the council shall be submitted to popular referendum. And the vote of a majority of the qualified voters voting in such referendums shall be conclusive and binding on the tribal council. Did you have it?
Well, not for a change, but just to like make it simpler so people understand. This one's like really good because basically anybody can have an effect on tribal government, or is supposed to through this. So like if you have an idea for a proposed ordinance or law or something that you want to have happen, then if you get 1/3 of all eligible voters to sign a petition, and by that probably make it good to know what the numbers are because it's hard to tell what exactly 1/3 is. But if you get that number, then and you propose it to the tribal council, then they have to put it to a referendum vote, which means like everybody on the reservation will vote on it. And if at least that certain number shows up to vote and it passes, then it becomes a new law. So it gives like an outlet for like anybody to come up with the idea and then try and get people behind it and make it happen in tribal government. So that's a pretty good one. Does anybody know of any examples that's been used? I saw a Facebook thing where for Constitution amendments, they're trying to do that in like '99, but they said they didn't have a third. But have you guys ever heard of anybody using the referendum one before?
I haven't. I'm new. This is just my first year in my first term of council. And we have these rules and we have all this on paper, but I have never myself experienced something like this. So if there is something that was done, it would be my first. And it would be something that I would love to follow through on, just to see how our tribal government, our people can affect our tribal government. Because that's the whole concept of why we're out here doing this constitution reform. And because you guys are our future leaders, that is why we wanted to come into your school and give you information with regard to the Constitution. So the more the ones that are really interested and the ones who can look at it, kind of not interested, but later on down the road, as you get older, it will start affecting your family because you have to do a certain thing to get something past that tribal council. So we're wanting all the people who took part in this do want to change. And it's hard for us present council reps because we have a body of 20 and I'm only one, so if I vote yes on something and everybody else votes no, well, I'll vote it. So therefore the people have a voice, and that's what we're trying to do, is give the people back their voice. Because this is your reservation. You have that right to make a change.
James, I think, and Tyler, you might be able to help me, but that referendum, didn't we have a referendum vote a couple years ago on the alcohol sale?
Yes, but
and because council didn't make a decision, they put it out to vote, and that was a couple years ago. Shoot, you voted.
2014.
Yeah, and then I don't know where it went. Wasn't that a referendum?
That was a referendum, and as far as my knowledge goes, it has not been approved by council. And then since then, I believe they've misplaced the documentation for it, and that's as far as I know is why it was not. It didn't make it to the agenda to that council, and then paperwork got lost, and it didn't make it to the next agenda or next council next term. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that my understanding of it was that it didn't follow the proper process, right? Yeah. And so the voting on it was null and void because it didn't follow the process that it should have according to the Constitution.
And that one followed the second part where it says a majority of the members of tribal council. The tribal council pushed that referendum instead of the 1/3 eligible voters.
And it was a pretty split vote, right?
Yeah, it was like 51-49.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of 5% error.
Okay, so Article 10 is a huge article. Now, sections deal with allotted land, tribal land, leasing of tribal land, grants of standard assignments, 10-year standard assignment, grant of exchange assignments, leasing of exchange assignments, inheritance of exchange assignments, inheritance of improvements, exchange of assignments, use of unassigned tribal land, purchase of land by tribe, and method of making assignments. Now, with Steph, I don't know, maybe you can help with like the assignments of land. Now, although we have this in our Constitution, doesn't the BIA have a probate code?
So what happens is if your parents or your grandparents own land, and what they can do is they can gift it to you. And I wanted to comment on your question there. Because way back when the government came in and took over, they gave our ancestors what's called allotted lands. And so from the allotted lands, then that's what they had. They lived on their land and did whatever. So throughout the years, the reason why the BIA has to be involved is because they keep track of all the land, all the government land that's here, all the land that's allotted. Allotted means it's owned by somebody. Fee patent means it's owned by a non-tribal member. And then you have the tribal lands, which are federal lands that are owned by the tribe. So there's different sections of land that could be allotted or be sold. When somebody wants to sell their land, they can sell their land, but they have to go through the BIA process and go through the land committee amongst the tribal council. And that's because that's how they keep track of the land. Each portion of land is issued a number, and that's how they keep track of those lands. And probate, and that's why the probate comes in, because when somebody passes away, and if they own land, then the family, there's a hierarchy. If it's the wife, or it's the husband, or the children, usually the oldest will inherit that land. But with regard to probate, like you said, you're enrolled here, but you said you can't give, your children can't, but they can. All you have to do is do a will. And so when that time comes, when your will is read, your children will be able to, however you disseminate that to your children. Under the probate law, if I was married to a non-tribal member and I passed away and I didn't do a will, that non-tribal member, husband of mine, will inherit all my land. And then if I have children, my children, they'll all get a portion of it. So that's how that works, but you got to do a will in order for your own family members to inherit that piece of land, or all your lands. So it just depends on how you do it. So there's a whole process. I mean, I know they were having the land buyback, and I don't know if some of you have heard about the land buyback, but that's where they were selling their land back to the tribe, and then they were getting big amounts of money. So they had that option, and the money that they got from that was supposed to go and help scholarship for kids' education, so kids could go to college. So they have some stuff out there, but for you guys, if you have land, your parents have land, if you're interested in it, it would be a good, I sit on the education committee as well, and I was just sitting there thinking about this whole land deal. I would push to have a little bit of it come into the schools, so that you guys would be able to know a little bit about your own tribal government versus the big U.S. government that usually doesn't have any effect on us, only with the funding sources. But within our own tribal government, you can learn about that, because one day you guys might want to be a tribal council member. You might want to be like Tyler over here, your district representative, your district executive board. So there's stuff to learn within the tribal government. And what you're getting now is just a touch of it, but there's a lot to it. And I like what the recommendation they made here about council members having some sort of degree. That's a good, especially a business degree, because actually that's what we are. We're supposed to be a business council. That's what I would like it to be, because we should be getting grants and bringing in funding for our own tribe, and not depending on the government. Although they do have a obligation under the treaties. I would like for our own tribe to be self-sustaining, so we don't have to depend on the government.
Okay. Was there any input on land or any of the articles?
Next.
Yes. Okay, Article 11 amendments. The Constitution and bylaws may be amended by a majority of the qualified voters of the tribe voting at an election called for the purpose of the Secretary of the Interior, provided that at least 30% of those entitled to vote shall vote in such election. But no amendment shall become effective until it shall have been approved by the Secretary of Interior. It shall be the duty of the Secretary of the Interior to call an election on any proposed amendments at the request of 2/3 of the council, or upon presentation of a petition signed by 1/3 of the qualified voters, members of the tribe. So it's basically, they have to, the Department of Interior Secretary has to approve the amendments, And either 2/3 of the council has to approve them to go to voting, or the members have to approve. Do you guys have an amendment on that? Okay. So Article 12, Bill of Rights, excuse me. The Bill of Rights describes what tribal council is unable to enforce or make into any law of the Bill of Rights listed in Article 12. And I believe that kind of like the Bill of Rights that's in the U.S. Constitution, and it's new, and just like a couple of, it was voted in the revisions, right? 2008? Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of the Bill of Rights would have happened in 1969, the first time they did amendments. A lot of that is like exactly what's in the 1968 Indian Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of that's not really, you can add protections to it, but you can't take any protections away from it. A lot of it's like word for word what's in that 1968 Indian Civil Rights Act.
Okay. No other input? Did we skip one? Oh. So Article 13, responsibilities of the executive committee, describes the responsibilities of the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and 5th member. Now, are there questions or clarifications on those roles? Okay. 14, qualifications of tribal council representatives. Sorry, there's a misspelling there. And executive committee officers. Any person elected as tribal council representative or as an executive committee officer must be a member of the Oglala Sioux tribe, be at least 30 years of age at the time of the election, and must reside within the exterior boundaries of the Pioneer Indian Reservation as defined in Article 1. So what does anyone think of the age to be a representative? Yeah.
I determine the age of 30.
That's a good question. The last time it was revised, that was their suggestion just as a council. I'm not sure that they had a way of determining that. But I hear a lot of people say that the age should be 18 because a lot of our youth have really good input, and the younger generation is usually more open-minded. You know, these are opinions of other people. And there is a lot of disagreement with the 30 years of age.
Bludon, isn't our 18 to 25 or the demographic of that age our largest?
Yes.
That's our largest population, right?
Yes.
I think it has something to do with science and your development of your frontal.
No, but your prefrontal, your lobe is developed by 25.
Yes,
so we
by
could say 25
Yes.
you can make reasonable and just decisions.
Yes, that's what I meant.
25 before they changed it to 30.
It was 25?
It was 25 before they changed it to 30. This one was actually what she said was correct. It was when the last referendum vote is when they moved it to 30. So it was 25, I believe, that one before it was changed to 30. That's why there's a lot of discrepancies. I know at one time it was actually 21 because we had 2 council representatives that are one of them is our finance chair this term. She was on the council when she was 23.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of this. It comes and goes, and we hear it, you know, because both myself and Bludon, I'm not 30 yet, but I'm as a district representative, and so there's a lot of pros and cons of 30. You know, like Michaela said, you know, you're 25, you're developed, but
Yeah.
you know. but, and Dana's made a good suggestion, or insight is there's a lot more 18 to 25, 18 to 26 demographics out there. But
That's a good point, though. It's a good fact to consider that at 25, maturity is there, and you're done, or pretty much at the other end of development in your brain. So 15, the oath of office describes the oath of office for tribal council representatives. Now this one, I believe, was another revision in the 2008 elections that voted on by the people, and there were some changes in that. Are there any suggestions to that on anyone's part? 16, meeting and procedures. So Article 16 states tribal council must have a mandatory meeting once a month in which 2/3 of elected members must be present. It also states they may call special meetings with a written statement. Also that they may adopt an ordinance establishing the process for the president to call emergency meetings to deal with natural, biological, or chemical disasters. Lastly, may adopt ordinance establishing the order of business in any regular or special meeting. And 17 is a National Sioux Council. So Article 17, the tribal council may appoint delegates to represent the Oglala Sioux tribe and National Sioux Council. Now I think there's only one sentence in there, but it's really vague. I know that they have a council of delegates who, go to DC or to the treaty meetings to represent the tribe. But there are also several different treaty organizations or treaty councils. So I've had suggestions about, that it needs to be further defined of what the representation is for. But I don't know if anybody has any input. Okay. So you guys have the survey, and I really, commend you guys for having that written out. That's really good. Yeah.
They have more that's based on stuff that's not currently in the Constitution.
More
Recommendations.
that's not currently in, like from the people, or?
Well, like ideas for things with tribal government that are not like based on just changing something that's already in the Constitution.
Well, we've had, so Wounded Knee District had a lot of suggestions about, really just taking the whole Constitution, throwing it out and restarting with something new, and, that's what they feel is appropriate. But we've had suggestions about incorporating family systems, so removing council and putting it heads of family to make those decisions. The TOSHPA system. So and that's quite a popular thing. I hear people say that a lot.
Oh, and one's that, like education and stuff on it.
What was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our other recommendations were to create a scholarship and higher education outreach office, possible under OST education departments. And our other recommendation was to have tribal funded grants for hard to fill positions such as doctors and lawyers. OST members, doctors, lawyers, and other positions requiring advanced degrees are far and few between. The OST should fix this by providing fluoride scholarships for OST members who enroll in Juris Doctor or medical programs. Another one of our recommendations was to require classes for newly elected tribal councilmen, officers, and judges in the areas of tribal government, treaties, and acts affecting the OST and business management. Having a degree should not be a requirement for office, but once elected, OST representatives should be given all the knowledge and tools they need to be effective tribal leaders.
That's a great recommendation. So we have, do you all have a copy of the survey? Okay. And, you know, if, like you said, you wanted to take your time and look at it and make your recommendations or your changes, and absolutely do that. I think this survey we want to collect by December 22nd. And if any of your friends or family want a survey, we'll also have a couple places at LNI that'll be handing out the Constitution and the survey. If you have any other questions or any concerns regarding this process or the next round that's coming, we should be able to have a schedule out pretty soon of the next rounds for the district and the schools and the elderly meeting. And with the survey, you can return them to your district service center.
Tribal ed.
You guys were going to take them too, right? Okay, yep. So medicine route is this Saturday, 9 to 4. Encourage your family to go. That's for the entire community. You know, like Tyler said earlier, today was for the youth. But bring out your families, and you have the Constitution with you. Let them take a look at it before they go. And then they can also pick up packets at their district service center. We also have Wakapami and Eagle Nest District for this Saturday. Okay, and we also have 2 more the elderly meetings. So Porcupine on Sunday from 9 to 4, and Wombly on next Saturday from 9 to 4. Yeah. So the Pioneer one was supposed to be yesterday, but they got moved to Monday from 9 to 11. And these are the Oglala Sioux Tribe, OglalaCoordination.info page, Constitutional Reform Facebook, and then the Oglala Sioux Tribe Facebook.
Another question was, the last one was, what would the ages considered for health?
On the meeting today?
Yeah.
Oh, they can. So if they have information on the treaties, anything they want to contribute, they can come. Okay. 55, right?
It's 60.
60?
Which one? The elder. What do you consider an elder on our country?
If your district in Medicine Root did if they established it for this district, then it would be what your district established. For housing, they established it at 55 for funding grant purposes. And then our district, Oglala District established it at 60. So if you don't have one, then I suppose whatever your district council uses, 55 or 60, that's what you would use. But I know nationwide it would be 65, I think. 60. Or 60. 62. Something like that. So it just depends on your district. I know it hasn't come to council to establish it reservation-wide.
I just want to thank you for coming and being here and taking the time to be here. I know it's after school and, you know, people want to, it's cold, but I like to go sleigh riding, so thank you, and especially, you know, being younger kids, I know you want to be home and really relaxing after a long day of school. So we appreciate your input, and come back out, give us some more input the next time we come. This is what we're doing it for, you know, make sure your voice is heard.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to thank all of you for your input. Tribal Ed will have a booth at LNI.
Yes.
And you can go up there and ask more questions if you're going to be up at LNI. Go see their booth, visit them. Please feel free to ask them. See Blue Dawn anywhere, ask her, the 2 ladies in the back, you know, Council Representative Leizure, Gina. And I like to tell you, give you a challenge, take this home, take it home to your family, let your family read about it, tell them about the meetings that are going to be coming up this Saturday, tell them about the elderly meeting coming up, you know. We did this, we're doing this, it's 90 years, long time coming. And so I really appreciate your comments over here, you know, they're really good. And I saw the paper, they're spot on, and it's time we change, it's time we move forward. And, you know, this is step one, and now we come back to hear your other concerns. So with that, I want to say thank you for coming. Thank you to the KOLC viewers for viewing this, and have a good rest of your evening. Thank you.